Hi, ladies. And I'm Xyza, and I'm a photographer and a migrant worker. I'm also a Filipino, by the way. And thank you so much, Zafigo, for inviting me here. I'm so excited. Like right now, my heart is pumping so fast. I might collapse here. So, anyway, I want to I want to take you to a journey. So, we're talking about travel. And this time, I'm going to talk about a different kind of travel. I'm going to talk about mobility. Georgia stepped out of her house quietly, catching one last glimpse of her sleeping children. She did not wake them because they might start crying and she would not have the strength to leave. Georgia traveled to Manila Airport with her husband that night. It was November 1996. With only a small bag and 20 Philippine peso, or 4 cents US dollar, Georgia was on her way to Singapore to work as a domestic worker. She was to stay there as a tourist while she waited for the employment agency to find work for her. That is illegal. But she was willing to take the risk. 2 years later, Georgia left Singapore and went to Hong Kong, where she has since continued to work as a domestic helper. She saw her children once every 2 years when she went home on vacation. Her children grew up without a mother, and Georgia got to know them only through brief visits, phone calls, and photographs. Georgia is my mother. This is my story, as well the story of millions of mothers around the world and their children who they have left behind. Our stories have been told countless times, but more often than not, they only scratch the surface. This time, we are telling our own story, and this time, I'm telling our story in front of you guys. Thank you for listening. Anyway, I'm not done yet. So, it's a story of love, sacrifice, family. I remember when I was 8 years old when my mother left. She traveled to Singapore, and no one explained to an 8-year-old child what happened. I just woke up, my mother's gone. My father came back, and he just said, "Oh, your mother went to Singapore." I did not understand that. I saw her again through this photo. That's her first ever photo that she sent us from Singapore. I thought she looks happy. She looks well. It's Christmas, she's holding gifts. And I was so angry because I thought, my young mind thought that my mother left us for a better life. She left us for money. And growing up without a mother is hard. It's hard for the children, and it's hard for my mother. But as children of migrants, we don't understand. We don't understand that our parents, our moms especially, needs to leave us because they don't have a choice. It's either they stay with us and live in poverty, or they leave us to give us a better life. I miss having a complete family. I'm a photographer now, but we just had our first family photo a month ago. We never had a complete family photo. I don't even have a baby picture. I was trying to find one for this presentation, but I was like, well, photography is very expensive way back. It's very much unlike today where everyone have a phone and almost everyone can take a photo. So I always try to tell people that if you have a camera and you're with your loved ones, take photos, but stay within the moment. This is my mother in Hong Kong. She was wearing a uniform. That was 1999. And every graduation or every moving up ceremony, my mother will come home for 2 weeks to send us on the stage. Because for her, and for a lot of women, education is very important. This is my mother's first passport. This is a very weak passport. So one thing about traveling, even now as a photographer, that is really hard is getting visas. And having a third world passport doesn't help. Every time, I'm gonna start sharing my experiences with travel. Every time I go to another new country and they saw my passport and they see my skin color, they think I'm gonna go there and apply for a refugee status. It's unbelievable. Like every time I even touch down, the plane touchdown, I try to apply lipstick to make me look professional. So that's one of the hurdles of traveling with a third world passport. Because you need to prove all the time that you're gonna go to this country, you're gonna travel, you're gonna spend your money, and you're gonna help their economy. This is my mother in Hong Kong. So our relationship from 8 years old to 18 is not that really well. My childhood is a little bit blur because when you're poor, you're just surviving. You don't look at the daily life. Like you don't become sentimental about your daily life because, well, you're struggling. That's her. She loves flowers. And that's us now. When I was 19 years old, I went to Hong Kong, and I became a domestic migrant worker just like my mom. And when I went there, I did not know her. Who is this woman? She was trying to be a mother to me, and as a daughter, I was pushing her away because I do not know her. And it took us years to mend that kind of our relationship. Luckily, we're close now. So, and I worked in Hong Kong for almost a decade as a domestic helper. By the way, the political correct term is domestic worker, because we need to acknowledge that what they do for us is work, not help. You know, just a side speech about that. Anyway, so I worked as a domestic worker in Hong Kong for almost a decade until someone discovered me on Facebook. So Facebook is good if it's used properly. So they saw my work, they sent it to New York Times. New York Times did a profile about me, and to be honest, I don't even know how big it was by then, because my world is very small. As a village girl who went to Hong Kong, my world is revolving around my mother, around Hong Kong. Even though I started photography back then, I'm still a very shy girl. I'm very quiet, until I became a full-time photographer. In 2015, I went to New York to study photography under Magnum Foundation Fellowship in NYU. And that's when my world became bigger. Because of travel, I gained confidence. By traveling and by going to different places, I was able to meet different people. I became a witness to their lives. They invited me to their homes. And one thing that I always ask them, and maybe you will ask when you go to their countries, is ask, how are you? Because nowadays, everyone just scroll. On their Instagram, on their Facebook, everyone's just posting. We forget to talk to the person in front of us and ask them, how are you? That simple sentence, that simple question opened a lot of homes for me. I'm basically living in a suitcase for almost 4 years now. And I gained around 40 pounds because of that. Anyway, because I keep traveling a lot, one thing that I'm learning lately is to be able to balance travel and health. As a woman, there's a lot of things that will be on our way. A lot of people will tell us, you can't do it. You're not supposed to do it. Why are you outspoken? You should be quiet. But we need to reclaim our own space. When we travel, we need to reclaim our space and be confident that we belong in that place. We belong on that seat on the plane, and we belong on that country that we're going to, and we belong to be part of the world. We're not just supposed to be inside our home. We're supposed to discover the world. We're supposed to break the ceilings that other people has, has that barrier that people build in front of us. So this is me in New York. When I went to New York, I was like mind blown because I was like, oh my God, this city is so big. So when I went there, I was a quiet, shy little girl. And then as I stayed there, I started to gain confidence, too confident that I'm able to talk to you now. And I was photographing the world. I was traveling from different parts of Asia, different parts of the Gulf countries, Americas. It doesn't matter, because for me, it's always the same in every country that I go to. Despite all the hurdles, it's always the locals that makes it wonderful. So one thing that I can advise you for real is have conversations with the local people. Talk to them. Learn a little bit of their language. Terima kasih, apa kabar? I've learned that when I went to Indonesia. So you learn those little things. Ask them how they are, and as you go on, ask them questions that nobody asked them. What are your dreams? What are your hopes? And you'll be amazed by the world that you're opening by these questions. So these are the samples of my photos. All right. So all of these stories that I've gathered through the years, I decided to make a book out of it. And I want to share to you the experience of making a book, because when a good person told me, you should make a book about your story, about the story of all these migrants, you know the first thing that came into my mind? I'm like, I don't deserve it. I'm too young. I'm not supposed to do it. What if people won't like it? So as girls, as women, we're conditioned to question ourselves whenever we're supposed to do something great. We're conditioned to doubt ourselves. So as I go on, I spoke with my mother. I asked her, like, can I make a book? Can I tell their story, our story? And what she told me pushed me to do it. She told me that the stories of women, the best people to tell it is another woman. That's why I'm very happy with being here in Zafigo right now, being in front of you and a gentleman and gentlemen, because we women should support each other. We women should uphold each other. We should all reclaim our own spaces in whatever things that we do, in travel, whatever country that we go to. We must reclaim ourselves. I sound like an activist. I'm sorry. Sometimes I don't know which hat to wear. I'm like, I'm gonna be an activist today, or am I gonna be the fun one or something? All these stories, see, it's like shameless plugging of a book, right? Anyway, it's gonna come out November 30. So we're gonna go back with travel. There's a lot of experiences with being travel. One thing that other people always say is, oh, your life is so glamorous now because you keep on traveling. Can you imagine? From someone working inside a home, taking care of 6 children, other people's children. I don't have my own, by the way. 6 children, and then suddenly I'm all over the place that people even can't keep up what country I'm in. Even my mother. I had an experience where she texted me, where are you? So it looks glamorous. Traveling is glamorous, but there's a lot of problems along the way. Like, for example, I experienced sleeping on airport floors. I experienced losing luggages. I experienced men being annoying, yeah, man. I'm supposed to say asshole, but I was thinking if I'm supposed to say that. So, thank you. So, men being men. There's a lot of experiences in travel that we don't usually talk about. Because when we post on social media, it's always about the good stuff, isn't it? We always post about, oh, this is so glamorous, this is so nice. And I'm very guilty about that. But then, we need spaces like this, like Zafigo, where we can read about the realities of travel and how we can protect ourselves and how can we travel properly. The first speaker a while ago talked about asking, instead of asking the why, we should ask the how. And it actually applies with my photography. For me, if you know the how in everything that you do, the why will be easier, isn't it? So as a photographer now, I've been doing a lot of stories about women, about migration, but I still do a lot of street photography. In street photography, I never spoke with the people I photograph. I just take photos of them and move on. But with documentary photography, I stay with the people that I photograph. I learn who they are. I spend a lot of time with them, sometimes too much time. So when I do all this documentation or being a witness, sometimes I absorb this second-hand trauma. Because if you keep listening to people and their problems, you're gonna absorb that. That's why I like shrinks. They're absorbing it, but they're earning something from it. You know? So with the second-hand trauma, one thing that I've learned is I need to take care of myself. Taking care of myself means I'm able to do the things that I'm doing in a better way. I'm able to empower other women in a better way, because by taking care of myself, I'm empowering myself first. So you must be your own heroes first before you become a hero to somebody else. You must take care of yourself, you must love yourself, and you must be able to say, I'm ready to love another person because I love myself. So if there's one thing that I can share to you today, you know what, the 3 minutes is always the longest. I have like 3 minutes here right now, and it feels so long. So be your own hero. When you travel, be your own hero. Be your own protector. Don't expect other people to protect you. Be your own powerful woman who's willing to reclaim your space in this world that we live in right now. And I'm really grateful for this platform to talk about all of this stuff, because to be honest, it's always hard for women to speak out, because not all of us are given the privilege to speak out. Speaking out is a privilege. And when someone gives us this space, this kind of platform to speak out, we need to yell. We need to yell in our strongest voice, because we must remember we're not given that opportunity, that privilege every day. As women, who's that one? Yeah. Anyway, thank you so much, and I hope we could do this again and share the word so we could do more of this. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Xyza.